What's up, guys? Adam from IAMTHETREND.com, and today we are visiting Storenvy. Beside me, I have Iain, head screen printer, and today he's basically going to take us through the shop, show us how things work, answer a few questions, and hopefully give you a little more information on the screen printing process.
It's going to be
Sound
awesome.
Good? All right, it is going to be awesome. So one of the main questions that I come across a lot is what's the difference between spot color, simulated process, and true process?
It all comes down to the different ways that we separate it, put it on the shirt. Each one depends on the artwork, the color of the shirt, the fabric of the shirt. There's a lot of variables. So spot color would be if it's an illustration or just 2-3 colors that's going to be more or less flat or simple halftones. Then we'll go with spot colors.
Okay.
If you go up to a full color illustration, a painting, a photograph, something along those lines,
sure,
and it's going on a light colored shirt, usually white, then we'll go with true process, which will just use CMYK
sure,
plus white if needed, or a spot color if needed. If there's a strong, say, cyan in there, or a strong teal, or a weird color that's not going to mix well, then we'll use a 5th color, a 6th color to get. To do simulated process is where you simulate true process.
Okay.
A true process goes along the way of how you would print on a magazine or a poster or offset printing on paper. So to do the simulated is using spot color inks to mix together to give you that effect.
Okay.
Which is generally runs between 6 and 10 colors depending on how complicated it gets.
Gotcha.
The benefit of that is going on dark colored shirts, you can keep it nice and vibrant.
Sure.
It doesn't get as grainy looking, and it's consistent. It runs the same across from shirt 1 to the very last shirt will look the same.
Gotcha.
With true process, it goes up and down. Some of them will get a little too yellow, some will get a little too red,
sure,
and it's like we're constantly battling, going heavier or lighter on different things.
I know you guys don't do it here, but direct-to-garment printing, what are your thoughts on it? Why don't you do it? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it?
I don't like it at all.
Okay. If you could explain what direct-to-garment is for people that might not know.
Direct-to-garment is basically using an inkjet printer that prints directly onto the shirt.
Sure.
It's meant for small runs, for little runs,
okay,
which we don't really do anyway. We had one. I was against getting it. I was very glad we got rid of it very quickly. I've seen good prints
sure,
off of it. It's not that they're all horrible, but it's definitely meant for one-offs, very small runs.
Gotcha.
It's not going to be as durable as screen printing, you know, especially with our inks with the discharge. You know,
sure,
we really get it into the shirt instead of just laying it right on top. So it's a very different process. The technology's come a long way in the past even 5 years
sure,
than what it was. So it's better, but I still,
it's not a fan.
I still can't.
What I've kind of noticed, I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but the colors are just not as vibrant, and they just don't pop the same way they do on a silkscreen shirt. I mean, I don't know if that's just something that
Well, a lot of it has to do with the way that the white goes down.
Okay.
So the white doesn't go down as strong.
Sure.
You know, it's a thinner layer than putting down a layer of ink. So it's very different. I just can't get behind it. I just
Fair
really
enough.
can't. Someday, I mean, there may be 10 color presses you load in as fast as an automatic press. It spins around and puts them out, but it's just not there yet.
Gotcha.
Maybe
down the road.
I don't know, maybe that's when it puts us out of business.
Let's hope not. So aside from the different styles of printing, you know, like we just talked about the true color process, spot color and whatnot, there's a ton of different inks. So if you could break down, you know, the inks for everyone at home and what their differences are and the best situation to use what kind of ink, I think that'd be helpful.
Okay. The main ink is plastisol.
Sure.
That's the one that's generally used across everything, which is, just like it says, it's a plastic ink. So it lays down thick and gives you kind of a plastic layer, but it also depends on how you modify the inks, the mesh that it goes through. So there's a lot of variables. It's not just you could have two different shops using the exact same gallon of ink and get drastically different results. One, a very thick, like almost like athletic number print, compared to one you can't feel at all.
Sure.
And there's just things that you do to, to change it.
And so that's kind of what you guys specialize in.
Yeah, that's kind of
getting into the details.
Our specialty is to do it on the softer end.
Yeah.
Where comes along with discharge, which has been around for a long time, but like we've been using it for well over 10 years, but it's just now really catching on.
Discharge
where before we would never talk about discharge by name. We would say this is the way we do it. It kind of bleaches out the shirt.
Gotcha.
Because no one knew what it was, but now it's becoming more popular. People understand the principle now. Where that.
So you've kind of hinted on discharge printing. Can you kind of
Yeah, where the discharge basically, instead of laying on top of the shirt, it discharges the shirt. You print it and it basically bleaches it out to whatever the cotton was before they dyed it, whether it's white, whether it's natural, either way. That's why sometimes you see them when it's a straight discharge and it's pure white, or other times it's more cream natural because that's the color of the cotton.
Gotcha.
So it's just a natural cotton color.
You're basically taking the dye away from the shirt.
Right, you're just taking the, say it's a black shirt, you lay it on the discharge, and when it prints it just kind of looks like a milky color. And when it's activated by heat, when it runs to the dryer on the other side, it comes out and it's white. And then there's different ways to modify that as well and get different results. You can get straight colors, do colors with plastisol on top. So there's many different variables when it comes to that.
And you guys discharge basically everything that's not on a tri-blend as far as your standard process goes.
Yeah, our standard process is basically discharge under base. For everything.
For sure.
We do that on anything that's 100% cotton, basically.
And why can't you discharge on a tri-blend tee?
The discharge only works on cotton.
Okay.
So when you get a tri-blend or a 50-50, it does not work on the polyester, on the rayon, anything like that. So it will work to some extent because it works with the cotton that's in there. So whatever the percent of cotton, it does actually work. But for the other ones, it doesn't work. So sometimes you get kind of splotchy, where I have like dots looking at it, with stronger in areas, others. So it is possible, but it's not a consistent result. It's not something you'd really want to do because out of 200 shirts, you may end up with 50 good ones and 150 that don't look so good. So we don't do that.
And then what about water-based inks? I mean, you don't see them a lot compared to plastisol.
Well, we do a lot of water-based with our discharge. So it's water-based is, instead of being a petroleum-based, it's water-based ink, so it's water-soluble, cleans up easier. The problem is it's similar to the discharge we use since it's water-based. It air dries. So a lot of problem. It's an ink you have to stay on top of. It's not a lazy ink. You can't just throw it in the screen.
Forget it.
Forget it. Yeah, you have to stay on top of it. You have to keep printing. If you stop for even just a couple minutes, a lot of times you have to go clean it out. So it's just it's a little bit harder to work with, to deal with. It has a shelf life once you activate it.
But one of the benefits, main benefits that I've seen from it is you cannot feel it at all. It's completely part of the shirt. But one of the disadvantages that I've kind of noticed with it is it's not as bright and vibrant as like a plastisol. Am I true in saying that?
Well, a lot of times what it is, most times people go with the water-based. They want something that's a little more eco-friendly, and then usually end up dropping the underbase. A lot of times water-based is done on tri-blends where you can't really underbase very well because you can't flash them. So you go with a straight water base, and then a lot of times, so say if it was the shirt you're wearing there, and if you wanted to go with that and you wanted to do a white, instead of the black print, you would see a little bit of the texture of the heather show through. Which I actually like.
Which is cool, I've seen a few shirts that do it really well.
So I mean, it depends on the design. It's so the inks, type of ink you want to use depends on your type of how your design looks, what your art looks like, what kind of material you're printing on, what color material you're printing on. So it's just variables. And it all comes down to knowing what's best for each system.
Lastly, I know you guys do some specialty inks as well, such as like foil, metallic, glow in the dark. I've had people ask me, what's the difference between a metallic ink and a foil ink? Or a foil, I guess foil is not really an ink, or is it?
No, the metallic ink is actually an ink that has basically a little flecks of glitter in it, which gives it kind of a shiny metallic-y look. The foil is actually done after the shirt's print. Which we have to use different inks for any other spot colors, and we have to lay down a layer of glue. So you don't actually print the ink, you print glue on the shirt. then you go back and you have rolls of the foil that you cut and you
Sure.
basically heat press it on. Which, the other thing with foil is it's not 100% consistent. Some of them look like a mirror, the next one will be a little textured, and it's
Gotcha.
one of those things that's not perfect. It's not like laying down ink because you're basically putting a layer of glue on a textured surface.
Gotcha.
So sometimes you got the pits of the cotton could be deeper,
Yep.
and it has a lot of variables. Yeah.
Sure.
But I mean, instead of being a kind of rough, glittery looking effect, it's more of a shiny mirror.
Like solid.
Yeah, a solid mirror looking.
Sounds good. And then you guys do glow in the dark ink as well, right?
Glow in the dark.
Anything else that's kind of out there? I've seen we did a rainbow print, which was basically you guys just mixed up a bunch of different inks and screened it on, and that turned out great. I think Made With Awesome did a tea like that, so that's kind of a cool option as well.
Do that? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of specialty inks, even back to the old puffs and the high densities and gels.
Yeah.
And, so
you guys still do a lot of those, or?
The high density and gels.
Sure.
We do every once in a while.
Not too much puff ink.
No, probably if we would design it, we'd probably put puff. Something like that.
I figured you would.
Something we would like, But no, we usually don't do much of that anymore. And right now it's foil.
Sure.
Foil is the big one. I mean, discharge on everything. Foil is pretty big.
Gotcha.
So
cool. So one of the other questions that I get a lot is how can you tell the difference between a good print and a bad print? Like what makes a good print and what can people look for when they receive their shirt to make sure that they have a high quality product?
The main thing will be how close is it to your original image? How close did it stay? How close were they able to reproduce it? Did it, are the colors right? And the main things between a good print and a bad print is registration. If all the colors are supposed to be where they're lined up, there's no gaps between them, no white peeking out around the edges where you see the underbase. That happens quite a bit on presses that move around. So if you don't have a really good press, they move on you a bit. The screens will kind of slide around. I mean, and just a hair is enough to see a white line pop through.
Sure.
And I mean, it happens times to time. Some shirts shrink a little bit when they get too hot, and other ones don't. So it's not that it's totally uncommon, but if it's like runs through all of your shirts all the time, that's probably not what you want to be looking for.
Sure.
The other main thing would be the feel of the print. You want a nice soft print, something that, you don't want like a big shield where it's going to be heavy and all nasty when you try to wear it. That's one of the main ones. That's what we try to focus on, is keeping a really soft underbase so you don't have a shield on your chest.
That's you kind of touched on it. So what really separates you guys from any other printer out there?
A lot of it comes down to experience. Myself and all the people that run the main presses we're all right around 20 years experience. Our separator's been doing it for 10, 12 years. So it's kind of starts at the very beginning with the separations. We've been doing our separations for so long that we've got it down pretty good. So we've got really good separators that are...
And you guys almost prefer to separate the artwork yourself, right?
I have never once been given artwork that I have been able to use to print with. We've always had to tweak it or re-separate it ourselves.
Sure.
So I mean, we just say let us do it because we're going to have to redo it again. So it's and kind of our next step is we have an image setter to run our film out on, which keeps registration really tight instead of having vellum or an inkjet where you might, if you get a nice big print where it might be a hair off. And then our screens, we use all retentionable screens, so we have really tight mesh, keep everything really clean. So a lot of it is just trying to keep our images as tight as possible so that everything lines up, and that's kind of a lot of the equipment we have is meant for that.
Sure.
And it just comes down to experience, knowing what, anyone can grab a screen and print a shirt, and it's not always going to be the same. So it just depends on everything that different people use.